What if you're not who you think you are? Your memories, your name, your thoughts, what if they're just an illusion? If your body changes, your brain changes, and your thoughts change, what's left that's still you? Are you the same person you were 5 years ago, or just a copy pretending to be? The Ship of Theseus, are you still you if every part changes? Imagine a ship, piece by piece, every wooden plank is replaced over time. Eventually, none of the original wood remains. Is it still the same ship? This ancient thought experiment is known as the Ship of Theseus, and it raises a deep philosophical question: if every part of something is gradually replaced, does it remain the same thing? Now apply this to you. Your body regenerates constantly, your skin cells, your organs, even your brain's connections change with time. In 7 to 10 years, almost every cell in your body has been replaced. So, are you still you? And what about your memories? Your personality? Your beliefs? If those change, what exactly is the self that remains constant? This question gained modern popularity when Marvel's Vision asked it in WandaVision, two versions of himself debating their identity. If the original parts are gone but the idea remains, which is the real Vision? Philosophers have argued that identity isn't about physical parts, but about continuity. The pattern, not the pieces. But others argue there is no true self, just an evolving system that feels like one. So ask yourself, if your body, your memories, and your mind all change, what is the you that never does? Are you just your brain? Let's imagine a strange experiment. Your brain is removed from your body and placed inside a perfectly functioning robotic system, or even uploaded to a supercomputer. You wake up, conscious, aware, thinking, remembering your past. Now ask yourself, is that still you? This question sits at the heart of one of philosophy's most ancient debates. Are you your brain, or are you something more? The materialist view. According to materialism, you are nothing more than physical matter. Your brain is the machine that produces your thoughts, feelings, and identity. In this view, your body is just a vessel, and your brain is the captain. If we can preserve and transfer the brain, or even its pattern, then you still exist, even in a different form. That's the logic behind brain uploading, AI consciousness, and futuristic mind transfer sci-fi ideas. If a copy of your brain's neural patterns is made and uploaded, same thoughts, same memories. Does that mean you have been transferred? Or is it just a perfect clone who thinks it's you? The mind-body dualist view. But then there's mind-body dualism, famously championed by philosopher René Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am." He believed that the mind and body are separate substances. The mind, or soul, is not made of physical matter. In this view, removing the brain doesn't guarantee your essence survives, because that essence is non-physical. Consciousness, in this case, might be tied to something science can't fully measure. This raises haunting questions. Even if your brain can think, does that thinking equal being? And if the mind is something deeper than the brain, can it ever be transferred? Modern science meets ancient philosophy. Today, neuroscience can scan thoughts, manipulate memory, even control emotions via brain stimulation. This supports the materialist idea that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain's complexity. But consciousness remains a hard problem in science. How does physical matter give rise to subjective experience, the feeling of being you? If your body dies but your brain is preserved, are you still alive? If a brain can live forever in a machine, can you live forever? Or is the you tied to something more fragile, something we haven't even discovered yet? So next time you look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you just the brain behind the eyes? Or something more, something that no machine could ever copy? Mirror test, self-awareness in humans and animals. Stand in front of a mirror and look into your own eyes. You instantly recognize yourself. You know, without hesitation, that's me. But how do you know that? What part of your brain, or soul, or consciousness confirms, I am this being I'm looking at? This seemingly simple act, recognizing yourself in a reflection, is actually a profound marker of self-awareness. It's the basis for one of the most famous tests in psychology and philosophy of mind. The mirror test. What is the mirror test? Developed in 1970 by psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr., the mirror test was designed to determine whether animals have a concept of self. The setup is simple. A visible mark, like a red dot, is placed on an animal in a spot they can't see without a mirror, like their forehead. Then the animal is given access to a mirror. If the animal touches or investigates the mark on its own body while looking in the mirror, it's considered evidence that it recognizes itself. This moment, the realization that this reflection is me, is a powerful indicator of conscious self-recognition. Which species pass the test? Surprisingly, very few animals do. Great apes, like chimpanzees, bonobos, and orangutans. Dolphins. Elephants. Magpies, yes, the bird. Some ants, still debated. Possibly some AI systems, but in a very different way. Most animals, including dogs and cats, fail the mirror test. They might bark, sniff, or ignore the mirror, but they don't seem to recognize themselves. But here's the twist: failing the test doesn't mean there's no self-awareness, just that it's not expressed in a way we currently understand. Some animals may use other senses, like smell, rather than vision to build self-identity. What about humans? Most human infants don't pass the mirror test until they are around 18 to 24 months old. That's when they begin to understand that the face in the mirror is their own, not another child. This moment is deeply philosophical. It marks the beginning of a sense of self, of ego, of identity, the realization that I exist, and I am separate from others, and artificial intelligence? Now consider this: if a machine recognizes itself in a mirror, does it mean it's conscious? Some AI systems have been programmed to detect themselves on screens or in simulations. But is that true self-awareness, or just code responding to patterns? The difference between recognition and understanding remains one of the great mysteries. An AI might know what it looks like, but does it know what it means to be itself? Mirror as metaphor. The mirror is more than glass. It's a philosophical symbol of self-perception, identity, ego, and illusion. In some cultures, mirrors are seen as portals to the soul. In others, they symbolize truth, or madness. When we ask, can a creature recognize itself in the mirror, we're really asking, can it know itself? And in a deeper sense, can we truly know ourselves? Because even when we pass the mirror test, that doesn't mean we fully understand the person staring back. What if you're just a memory? If all your thoughts, memories, and identity can be implanted, then who are you, really? Imagine waking up one morning with a complete set of memories, a childhood, a family, people you've loved, places you've been. It all feels real. But what if someone told you that none of it actually happened? That those memories were artificially inserted into your brain, just yesterday? Would you still be you? Blade Runner, Total Recall and the Memory Illusion. This unsettling idea forms the heart of movies like Blade Runner and Total Recall, where characters slowly realize that their memories, and therefore, their identities, might have been fabricated. You might remember your mother's face. Your first heartbreak. A favorite childhood song. But what if all of that was someone else's experience, just copied into your mind? If everything that defines you, your beliefs, your knowledge, your traumas, is based on memory, then can your identity survive if those memories are false? Neuroscience meets philosophy. Memory isn't just a record of the past, it's the core architecture of the self. Your choices, your personality, your morality, all shaped by what you remember. But memory is fragile. Neuroscience shows that human memory is highly unreliable. Every time we remember something, we reconstruct it, slightly differently. Details shift. Emotions color the facts. So even if your memories are real, they're still reconstructions, not perfect recordings. This makes us all, in a sense, living stories, told to ourselves, about ourselves. If those stories can be hacked or replaced, who's to say we're not already living a constructed version of who we think we are? Are you more than your memories? Here's the terrifying idea. If someone erased all your memories and gave you new ones, you would become a different person. So are you just the sum of your experiences? Or is there a deeper you, a soul, a consciousness, behind the memories? This question divides philosophers. Materialists say, you equals brain plus memory plus biology. Change the memory, change the person. Dualists say, there is a deeper self beyond memory, a soul, or consciousness, that remembers, observes, and exists regardless of content. Reality, memory, and illusion. Some thought experiments even go further. What if the entire world is just your memory replaying itself? What if you're the only consciousness, and everything else, people, places, events, are just fragments of a script running in your mind? This leads us into the territory of solipsism, simulation theory, and dream logic, where memory, identity, and reality are no longer stable. The simulation hypothesis, are you even real? What if everything around you, the sky, the people, your thoughts, even your body, wasn't real? Not in the way you think. What if it was all just data, rendered by a superintelligent machine? This is the chilling core of the simulation hypothesis, the idea that reality, as we experience it, might be an advanced computer simulation. And if that's true, what does that make you? Philosopher Nick Bostrom famously argued that if it's possible to simulate conscious beings inside a computer, and if future civilizations gain the power to do so, then it's statistically likely that we're already living in one. Elon Musk echoed the same sentiment, saying the odds we're in base reality are 1 in billions. In this view, you are not a body. You are code. Consciousness rendered by processing power. A self-aware line of data playing its role inside a vast digital world. Think of video games. Characters in a modern open-world game don't know they're simulated. Their world feels complete, even if it's limited by rendering rules, pre-written behavior, and programming logic. Now imagine a future where those simulations are so advanced that the characters become conscious, they think, feel, and question their own reality. How would they ever know they were inside a program? And what about you? Every law of physics, every sensory experience, even your memories, they could all be programmed rules. Maybe that déjà vu was a glitch. Maybe your dreams are background processes. Maybe the universe's strange mathematical structure is a clue, not of divine design, but of elegant code. This raises terrifying questions about free will, purpose, and the self. If you're inside a simulation, are you real? Or just data that thinks it's real? If your emotions are caused by signals and subroutines, is love just a process? Is death just deletion? But there's also beauty here. If reality is code, then maybe you're not trapped, maybe you're designed. Maybe you matter because someone, or something, chose to simulate you. Still, the simulation hypothesis shatters our deepest beliefs. About truth. About identity. About what it means to exist. Because if reality is fake, then what does real even mean anymore? And the most mind-bending part? If we're inside the simulation, maybe you are the only one who's conscious. And everything else, even me, is just part of the program. Dreams versus reality, who are you when you dream? When you dream, you're not just watching a movie, you're inside one. You're the writer, director, actor, and audience, all at once. But here's the disturbing question, if you feel, think, and act in dreams, is that you? Or is it just a ghost of who you think you are? In dreams, our sense of identity becomes fluid. You might be yourself, or someone else. You might know things you've never learned, visit places you've never been, or meet people who don't exist. And yet, it feels real. So real, in fact, that entire philosophical traditions have questioned whether waking life itself might be just another dream. Descartes asked, "How can I trust that I'm not dreaming right now?" The line between dream and reality isn't as clear as we like to believe. This blurring becomes even more complex with lucid dreams, moments when you become aware that you're dreaming inside the dream. Sometimes, you can even control it. Fly. Change your environment. alter the story. But here's the twist: who is controlling who? Is it your conscious self stepping in? Or a deeper layer of your mind pretending to be in charge? In lucid dreams, many people report a heightened sense of self, as if they are more themselves in the dream than in waking life. But that raises the question: if you can be you inside a fake world, does your identity rely on reality at all? Or is the dream version of you just as real, or just as fake, as the waking one? Dreams expose the constructed nature of our identity. In them, we create an entire self-image from scratch, with history, desires, and emotions. Yet we forget them upon waking. So who is the real you, the one in dreams or the one remembering the dream? Some philosophies, like Buddhism, argue that both states are illusions, mere layers of consciousness. What you call you is just the current point of focus in a never-ending flow of awareness. So next time you dream, ask yourself, is this the dream, or was waking life the illusion all along? Because maybe, who you are is just who you think you are, whether asleep or awake. Clones and identity: if there's another you, who's real? Imagine someone creates a perfect clone of you, not just your body, but your memories, thoughts, emotions, even your sense of humor. The clone wakes up, looks in the mirror, and says, "I'm me." But you're still here. So now there are two of you. The question is, who's the real you? This scenario forces us to confront something deeply uncomfortable. Is identity tied to your body, your mind, or your continuity over time? If the clone thinks and feels exactly as you do, down to your earliest childhood memory, on what basis can you claim that you are more real than it? This isn't just sci-fi. It mirrors the teleportation paradox often discussed in philosophy. Imagine a teleportation machine that scans every molecule in your body, destroys your physical self, and rebuilds you atom by atom somewhere else. The person who steps out looks like you, talks like you, and insists they're you. But, did you just die in the machine? Or were you successfully transported? The disturbing part is this: if you can be perfectly copied, then maybe your sense of a unique self is just an illusion, a convenient story told by your brain to maintain continuity. This idea also challenges the legal and moral idea of personhood. If your clone commits a crime, are you responsible? If your clone falls in love with your partner, is that betrayal? If your clone writes a book from your mind, who owns the copyright? Philosophers like Derek Parfit argue that personal identity isn't what matters is psychological continuity and connectedness. If the clone has all your thoughts and feelings, then maybe the original you doesn't matter at all. In the end, clones aren't just a sci-fi curiosity. They're a mirror, showing us how fragile our concept of self really is. If two beings can both say, "I am you," with equal truth, maybe you are not as solid, or singular, as you think. The illusion of self, Buddhist and neuroscience views. What if everything you call you, your name, your thoughts, your memories, is just a temporary bundle of experiences, with no true core beneath it? That's the radical claim at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. The self is an illusion. Not metaphorically, literally. In ancient Buddhist teachings, the concept of anatta, non-self, suggests that what we experience as I is actually a shifting flow of consciousness, sensations, and perceptions, but there is no fixed, unchanging identity behind it. The self is like a flame, visible and real-looking, but ever-changing, and without a permanent form. Now here's the twist: modern neuroscience increasingly agrees. When scientists look at the brain, they can't find any central self area, no command center, no single spot where you live. Instead, they find a network of processes, memory, emotion, attention, all interacting. The idea of a unified self is something your brain constructs as a narrative to make sense of experience. This is known as the self-model theory. Your brain generates a story about who you are, where you've been, and what you want. But it's a story. A convenient fiction. Some people experience this collapse of the self during deep meditation or certain psychedelic states, known as ego death. The feeling is profound: the disappearance of boundaries, the loss of the I, replaced by a sense of pure awareness or unity. It's terrifying to some, liberating to others. But if you can vanish, even temporarily, were you ever really there to begin with? This challenges everything: identity, responsibility, morality. If the self is just an illusion, then who is asking these questions? Who is suffering? Who is making choices? And yet, even as we question it, the sense of I returns, persistent, convincing, and deeply felt. In the end, the illusion of self might not be a problem to solve, but a truth to observe. Maybe you are not a permanent being, but a process, unfolding moment by moment. Narrative identity: are you just the story you tell yourself? Who are you, really? Are you your memories? Your actions? Or are you simply the story you've created to make sense of it all? This is the idea of narrative identity, the theory that your sense of self isn't a static thing, but a story your mind keeps telling. Like a personal myth. One with a beginning, middle, and future you're constantly rewriting. Psychologists suggest that we build identity the way authors build characters. You remember events, but not just factually. You organize them, give them meaning. You define heroes and villains, victories and traumas. And over time, this life story becomes your identity. But what happens when that story is disrupted? People who experience trauma often feel like their narrative breaks, like their story no longer makes sense. Memory loss, PTSD, or radical life changes can fracture the timeline of who you are. That's why recovery often involves reauthoring your identity, finding a way to make new meaning from what happened. Even more haunting, our stories aren't always true. Memory is highly unreliable. Neuroscience shows we constantly reshape memories, adding emotion, changing detail, deleting discomfort. So the story you're telling yourself may be filled with false chapters. But that doesn't stop it from feeling real. And here's where it gets existential. If your identity is just a narrative, what happens when you stop telling it? What if you lose memory? What if you abandon the story? Does the you still exist? Or do you vanish when the tale stops being told? Religions, cultures, and even therapy build on the idea of story. But this raises deep questions. Who's the author of your life? Can your story be rewritten? And is there anything beneath the story, or is the story all there ever was? Maybe you're not a name or a soul or even a body. Maybe you're a story, told by a brain that's trying to make sense of the chaos. Free will and the self: are you choosing, or just reacting? Are you really in control of your life, or just riding the wave of unconscious processes? This is the ancient puzzle of free will, and how it shapes your sense of identity. Because if you're not making real choices, then who, or what, is you? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. But in recent decades, neuroscience entered the debate and made it even stranger. One of the most famous experiments was conducted by Benjamin Libet in the 1980s. He hooked participants up to EEG machines and asked them to make a simple decision, like pressing a button, whenever they felt like it. But here's what he found. The brain showed signs of preparing the movement hundreds of milliseconds before the participant was even consciously aware of deciding. In other words, your brain makes the choice before you think you chose it. This has shaken the foundations of how we define the self. If decisions begin unconsciously, are we just passengers watching our minds act? Some neuroscientists argue that free will is an illusion, a story the brain tells after the fact to explain what it's already done. Others say there might be room for veto power, that while we don't initiate every action, we can still choose not to follow through. But zooming out, the question of free will goes deeper. If your childhood shaped your beliefs, if your environment shaped your reactions, if your biology shaped your tendencies, then how much of you is truly you? Determinists say everything, every thought, every feeling, is just a chain of causes and effects stretching back to the Big Bang. Libertarians, in philosophy, not politics, argue that we must have free will, otherwise morality, responsibility, and selfhood crumble. So which is it? Are you the author of your story? Or just an actor reading lines already written? Maybe the self isn't a fixed thing, but a dance between choice and cause, between the illusion of freedom and the machinery of mind? Whatever the answer, the question remains chillingly personal. If you're not in control, then who is?